Order, and want to welcome everyone here. We had done an invocation and a pledge of allegiance at the beginning of this afternoon, so we're going to move on into the agenda. We have one speaker for public comment today. Mr. Smith, if you want to step up to the podium.
Yes, sir. I'm Julian Smith. I live on St. Simon's Island, and I'm really high risk for this coronavirus. But let me get going. Thank you for even having this meeting this afternoon. Yesterday morning, the Brunswick News reported, perhaps erroneously, but I'll report on what they reported, that you, our County Commission Chair, Mr. Browning, had said it's unlikely the Commission will take any action on the matter of the coronavirus update that you got from the public health person. I'll repeat that. It's unlikely the Commission will take any action on this matter. And the reporter in the Brunswick News then quoted the chair as saying, I don't think the county's role is to tell people what action to take. Now, I agree that it might not be always appropriate for our county commission to tell some or all of our citizens what actions to take. There are times when the county commission needs to instruct the county manager to instruct all county staff, including the police department, what actions they need to take or avoid taking. And this particular crisis, this coronavirus crisis, is one of those times. And while I agree with the widespread official advice that we should stay calm and wash our hands during this pandemic, I do not believe you, our county commissioners, should wash your hands of responsibility for the way our county government and employees respond to this emergency. As we confront this emergency in Glynn County, I hope that our county government and our civic organizations, our churches, our charitable organizations will act calmly and deliberately in accordance with the 7 corporal works of mercy. These are traditional works of mercy that have been observed for centuries around the world. They are to feed the hungry and to give water to the thirsty. Those are the first 2. Now, those first 2 works can be observed by helping to keep our grocery stores and our pharmacies open and stocked with necessities and staff, and if necessary, assigning county employees to help supervise or facilitate the delivery of purchases, either to homes or within parking lots by our major groceries. To clothe the naked is the third of the corporal works of mercy, the bodily works of mercy. Now, while we do not need to clothe the literally naked in this county, we do need to cover those who are naked in the sense they do not have access to the things they need, including shelter, food, funds, and health care. To shelter the homeless. What will happen to our homeless population if and when shelters close? How will we shelter those who learn or fear they are infected and do not wish to return home to infect their loved ones? Will our local hotels, motels, and dormitories at Flexi and the College of Coastal Georgia be turned into places of refuge or quarantine? And what will we do if a hurricane approaches Glynn County during this emergency? Are you going to do as you have in the past and order mandatory evacuation to some far-off place where there may not be a place for people to be safe from the virus. To comfort the sick, who will bring them the things they need to sustain life or ease their final days if it comes to that? To visit the imprisoned or free the captive, who will help free the minds and spirits of those imprisoned or held captive by fear? And finally, the last and seventh, to bury the dead. How will we as individuals and a community plan for and confront the possibility of a great number of deaths in a short time? And what are we going to do to find those who die alone and unattended? Now, I'm hoping things will not come to the terrible pass that it may come to if this spreads as it is able to spread. And one thing growing out of what I heard this afternoon, as you discussed PLOS 2020, I think you need to be very flexible and very resilient between now and November. I'm glad that you decided not to have the vote on this PLOS 2020 until November. Originally, you were planning to have it in May. I'm so glad you changed it to November. This gives you time to think about some of the things we may need and some of the things we may not need as much of, such as making traffic move faster. We may have less traffic to move. We may want to encourage less development after this pandemic passes. So thank you for this time and good luck.
Thank you for the uplifting message. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would propose a motion to add an item to the agenda. Move to add item 11 to the agenda to consider amending the personnel policies to address employee leave to care for his or her child under 18 years of age if the school or place of care of such a child has been closed or the child care provider of such a child is unavailable due to a public health emergency declared by a federal, state, or local authority.
Second. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioners, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. That is adopted. Okay. Item 11 is added.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve consent agenda, general business and personnel committee items, unless there's an item that Commissioner wishes to pull for discussion.
I would like to pull the personnel committee items just for a brief statement, if we can consider those separately, please. 7, 8, and 9. And I think a combined statement will suffice, but I have a question.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Got a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. That is unanimous. Okay. Did you want to just make a statement?
No, I want to ask a brief question, I think, to Mr. Hours. In the personnel committee, and I want this more for public, in our personnel committee meeting, we recommended these 3 positions, and I still agree that we need them, but your personnel freeze came out the day after. Can you address that in a statement for us publicly as to why these positions would still need to be added in the midst of the freeze, please?
Yes, Commissioner Neal, excuse me, it's a very valid question. So I'll take them in order, and Director of Parks and Recreation is here, and she can certainly weigh in. I do believe, in light of the current economic situation, that item 7 can wait. We're trying to fill a need. I think that can wait. Animal control, I consider that a public safety department And I really think they've needed this position for a long time. And even though, under the current situation, I think this position is very important to be able to meet the public need related to animal control. The legal assistant for the public defender and the county attorney he's closer to this than I am, but what we've tried to do, and the board might remember that a year or two ago, we had an issue with the then public defender. Since then, we've tried to revamp the public defender system or office for state court. And we've had some turnover with the public defender positions, but I think that's under better control now. But the legal assistant, we've tried to use a temporary agency, and it just hasn't worked. Because they send over someone with administrative skills, but that has no legal knowledge or experience. And I believe this position is critical to get somebody in there, because if a member of the public needs a public defender assistance, where do they go? They go to this administrative assistant, and they need to be able, they're almost as important as the public defender themselves in terms of helping the citizen make application, answering the questions, getting them directed in the right manner, and interacting with the public defenders. And Aaron, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I do believe that's a critical position.
And the net cost on item 9 is negligible, right? And I just wanted the entire commission to know and understand on that, what we're paying out in part-time help now versus hiring that position and having it staffed is almost a net zero. It's not quite, but very close. So I wanted everybody to be aware of that, and I wanted the public to be aware of it. Then, Mr. Howard, you tell me what you want on item 7, or Lisa.
Yeah, I want to know why we want to wait on item 7. It's been waiting, I think,
and
for quite a while, and
Just from
if
a
right now
standpoint.
to do it in a situation where it's a crisis is, to me, it's just not being professional, especially if we got somebody that we think should be full-time. While we waiting, and especially now when they would need to be full-time in a crisis situation. I just don't think that's right.
Need to do it.
All right, so,
And so, in light of the information, and I'll preempt Lisa, in light of the information given, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the Personnel Committee recommendations 7, 8, and 9.
I'll second it.
all right, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor, 7, 8, and 9, signify by raising your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
I think that is good discussion. Okay, under general business, item 10, consider amending the travel policy. Mr. Hours.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, back in 2009, I believe it was, with the economic recession, the great economic recession at the time, the county put in place a restriction on travel, and I believe we're at that point today where this is important to do. Fact of the matter is, most conferences are being canceled anyway, and so for two reasons. One, for the protection of our employees, to keep them away from possible interaction with the virus, and also for economic reasons. I'd recommend to place a freeze on all non-essential travel requests for the remainder of this fiscal year. and that the county manager would become the final approval of any travel requested for any reason for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Okay. Commissioners, do I have any questions? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, hold on, am I reading the right thing?
Item 10.
I move to, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the authorization of the county manager to place travel restrictions, freeze on all non-essential travel requests for the remainder of the fiscal year FY20.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 11, consider amending the personnel policy to address employee leave to care for his, her child under 18 years of age if the school or place of care of such child has been closed or the child care provider of such child is unavailable due to a public health emergency declared by a federal, state, or local authority. Ms. Reed.
Good afternoon. This amendment is to amend the personnel policy to allow employees to use their sick vacation or leave without pay to care for a child under the age of 18 since the school system has closed. And we have several employees who have school-aged children and will need to find a way to take care of them during this time. This policy will allow an employee, normally you would use sick leave, for sick purposes, and then annual leave or leave without pay. They will have the choice of using accrued sick leave. If they didn't have any annual leave on the books, they could use accrued sick leave so they will be paid during that time, annual leave or leave without pay if they have no leave on the books. But this will give them the flexibility to deal with child care during this time.
All right. Commissioners, anyone have any questions for Ms. Reed? Aaron?
Commissioners, I would also add, this says a sunset provision in it.
Right.
That's June 30th of 2020. So you can extend that out further. The reason that's in there is that there's a federal statute that's being contemplated by Congress right now. And if that passes, that's going to address this along with other things. And we'll have to come back to you with a more comprehensive, it's an FMLA amendment. Also addresses a mandatory 2 weeks of extra sick leave. So we would amend that anyway. So this would have a sunset of June 30th. Okay, will be, your exponential changes is December 31st, but the draft says June 30th. So it'd be June 30th, 2020. We did talk about, should we extend it out to the end of the year? But we chose a date just to have it come up at some point in the future. Hopefully by then, it'll be summertime and we won't need any longer, but we'll see. We'll certainly reevaluate it as it goes forward.
And why was 18 years of age chosen as, I know they're still in high school, but I mean, do they need?
Right, we were looking at the federal law, and the federal law addressed 18 years of age.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, that's why.
We tried to track, there will be a very similar provision. It's a 100-page act, but one of the pages has the similar language, younger than 18. That also incidentally tracks our definition for a child under 18 that we already have in there. These are not sick, so these aren't sick children necessarily. If they are sick, then that would tie into what our sick leave already has for a parent that needs to take care of a sick child.
You just don't generally think of 18-year-olds needing child care.
Right, that's right. Yeah, we try to track as much as possible the federal language, and that was discussed by staff as to,
Our 18-year-olds.
17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, do they need that? This also would require the approval of the department head. Obviously, some positions can't, if it's an emergency responder, first responder, may have some differences in terms of can you do without those people. but, that will be done at the department head level to make sure that county operations aren't affected too much with this provision.
Does this make allowances for special needs children that are 18 and older?
It does not. It's something we've talked about, and we are prepared to come back to you at the near future with another amendment. But as that was being drafted in that last 24 hours, we wanted to make sure we got that right. So that is something that was brought up by Ms. Reed and her staff.
So that's not going to come back. So you have work to do if somebody runs into that has a special needs kid that has to stay home with them. Because the caregivers have to stay home with their child.
Right. Part of, and we, certainly, I think here you loud and clear on that. Part of the, drafting process for that will be trying to define, because we can define what schools are for children under 18, private public schools or daycare provider. For this, it'll be more of trying to define, what is being shut down, or what is being terminated temporarily, albeit. So we just didn't want to put before you a bad amendment that we hadn't really vetted out through the system and the process and address what unforeseen circumstances we could have. But that is something that Ms. Reed and I have talked.
So do we already have enough flexibility that if we run across somebody on that, I'm sure the department heads, if they know their people, they should know who may need that.
That's true. And they certainly, it probably, the employee would still have sick leave, vacation, or they could take leave without pay. Even in the situation, say if we weren't in this coronavirus situation and something happened with their adult child with a disability, they still would have that flexibility. So,
but I'm saying to use it is what this is about. And it's just for child care when they normally have somebody there, but they don't. It's not that the child is sick or anything.
correct.
So
But if they were in that situation and outside of this, and we would be able to, they would use vacation leave. But this amendment gives them the flexibility of, using sick leave if they didn't have vacation. That's the flexibility with this. But in a normal circumstance, they could use, if the child was not sick, but they needed to stay home to take care of them, they could use vacation. And if they're out of leave, they would use leave without pay.
yeah, I'm just concerned about the 18, the age, because I know normally we could, but that's all.
The only difference, as Ms. Reed was pointing out, that between what this would do and what we currently have is that anyone over 18 with special needs or otherwise can still take annual leave. They would not necessarily be able to take sick leave for that, which is what we're looking to maybe add to this going forward. But they could take annual leave or potentially leave without pay. So there is a mechanism for them to do that. Traditionally, we have sick leave is and this is a new thing for all of us, obviously, this virus. But sick leave is to take care of yourself that's sick or a family member that's sick. We haven't been confronted with the situation of schools or daycares being shut down, albeit while not necessarily tied to a sickness or illness of that child directly. So I think we're having to certainly relook at a lot of the policies.
We're winging it right now, so we're doing the best we can.
Did you make a motion?
I will. I move to amend the personnel policy to address the employee leave to care for his or her child under 18 years of age if the school or place of care of such child has been closed or the child care provider of such child is unavailable due to the public health emergency declared by the federal, state, and local authority.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. That is unanimous. Mr. Attorney, got any actions? We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.